Glad for moments that feel so high. Just one picture can
Hello,
erase.
friends. Thank you for coming. It has been, and
Wherever you want to
Rabbi
be.
Dorf is now.
We're also ordaining Rabbi Dorf.
Getting his 19th
Just
shot.
a fair warning, some of us might end up wandering that direction.
You've earned the right to see anyone in the room you want.
Oh man. Rule number one.
I want to first begin by thanking this cohort of people. Opportunity to learn about wrangling 14 rabbis to be into creating one project together. It's been a really exciting and honored project to get to do. We have, as you know, entitled the piece that we will be presenting to you, Arba'a Asar, Yodea. You are familiar with the, we'll go with beloved, song toward the end of the Pesach Seder. It seems as though we attach something to a number and act as though we know it. For some of us, we learned this song when we were very, very little. For others, that may have learned the song a little bit later. But I think all 14 of us have learned through our time in Ziegler that simply knowing what concept goes with a number is such a surface way of knowing something that it is not even a drop of water on the back of a fly. And we have realized, you'll get there. And so we wanted to, each of us will take on a number and share with you something about how our time at Ziegler has deepened our understanding of so much and recognize that we still have so much more to learn.
No one's starting.
אחד אני יודע. My presentation is about God. Confession, I actually don't yodea about God. In fact, nobody does. I can quote you what many learned people have written about God, or ideas that some people who are way more intelligent than I, have come up with, but I don't know. I realized this when my 4-year-old began asking tough questions that Jews ask. What does God look like? Where does God live? Do I get to be with God when I pass away? I didn't know, and no one does. I'm supposed to tell you what my time at Ziegler has taught me about God, and I don't take this task lightly at all. Here's what I understand about God after 6 years, yes, 6 years, thorough study, deep contemplation, and access to some of the smartest people our movement and the Jewish world has to offer. This is what I now know. I will never understand God. But the process of attempting to understand God, that is the most worthwhile thing that one can do. In my first year at Ziegler, I remember an upperclassman, who's now a rabbi, they told me that they could check the Dodgers scores while davening and not skip a beat. True story. And for me, I wonder, what is the point? Just by nature of the fact that we're sitting in this room right now, we are all so incredibly blessed and fortunate. And while I can never prove that rationally, I think that God has something to do with that. Sometimes I question our motives. Kashrut, tzitzit, kippot, the rituals, fixed prayer, restrictions on everything, second day hug. What is all of that for, if we are not sincerely trying to seek the face of God? Is it for tradition? That evolves daily. Is it for heritage? Is it for culture? We redefine that twice in every generation. My answer, ladies and gentlemen, is God. The life source that has sustained our people for millennia is this complicated relationship with the deity that our prophets, our sages, our teachers, and ancestors have tried to understand, but they couldn't do it because it can't be done. But they didn't stop trying.
Thank you.
And neither should we. What have I learned during my tenure here? That our beloved teachers at Ziegler are the experts because they have spent so much time attempting to understand God. And they did so by marinating in Torah. Seek them out, question them, challenge them, learn from them, and slowly their Torah will become your own. Now, I wouldn't be me if I didn't implore you to open up a Tanakh and read the words of the people who claim to have seen God face to face. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Isaiah, all three of them according to Rabbi Dor. Samuel, their words are living water. Perhaps they Yodea about God. And of course, I would encourage you to follow up with Torah Shebe'al Peh from our learned sages of the tradition as well. I have learned that in my time here. Carry this tradition of yearning for God, and when you need it the most, it will carry you. I will never understand God, but the 6 years I've spent here attempting to understand will always hold a special place in my heart.
I'd like to speak about Shnei and Lachot Habrit, specifically about the broken tablets, the first tablets that came down, and Moshe came down with them, eager to present them to the people, and what does he see? Them worshiping the golden calf, and he's furious, and he shatters these holy tablets. He's called back up to the mountain, called back to meet with God again, pleads with God on behalf of the Israelites, and God agrees to give a second set of tablets to bring down. But God says, put them in the ark that you've made. And the rabbis have interpreted that not only this new set of the tablets are put in the ark, but the first set, the broken fragments, are also to be put in the ark. So the Talmud cites that in a number of different places. In Brachot 8b, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi advised, be careful to continue to respect an elder who has forgotten his Torah knowledge due to circumstances beyond his control. Even though he is no longer a Torah scholar, he must still be respected for the Torah that he once possessed. As we say, both the tablets of the commandment and the broken tablets are placed in the Ark of the Covenant. In Menachot 99a, it also goes on, it cites Rav Yosef, who teaches in the Baraita that both the tablets of the covenant and the pieces of the broken tablets are to be placed in the ark. And cites the same instance of, just as a scholar who has forgotten his Torah knowledge due to circumstances beyond his control, we behave towards him not in a degrading manner. And last, in Bava Batra 14b, it also cites the same passage with Rabbi Meir, and also about Rav Yosef. But I feel that there's a little more to us saving these broken holy fragments. Each of us in ourselves has broken pieces that we carry with us. And they are holy pieces. They're part of who we are now, what made us who we are, and we have to honor those. We carry those with us, and that's part of what we incorporate into our life and shining out into the world. Thank
So, in my own right, I've been a dad my whole life, in a weird way, and I celebrate this also wanting to mention that I have 4 generations of family with me right here. My mom is behind the camera, my grandfather's right there, and Winnie's at my feet, as we should all be at Sages. So I wish to share the Torah that I got to accumulate being a dad my whole life. And they're in the flavor of biblical dad jokes. Why couldn't Jonah trust the ocean?
Why?
Because he knew there was something fishy about it. Who was the most business-savvy woman in the Bible? Pharaoh's daughter, who went down to the bank of the Nile and pulled out a little profit. What's the difference between Jesus and a piece of... Wait, no, we'll skip that one. Where is the first tennis match mentioned in the Bible?
Where?
When Joseph served in Pharaoh's court. This is the kind of Torah I've gotten to carry with me as a dad. Before Winnie was born, before I became a Ziegler, but I did not become a father until Winnie was born, and I was not able to incorporate a real depth of Torah until I was able to learn it from the text, learn it from my mentors, learn it from my fellow classmates, learn it from you, learn it from everyone here. And for me, one of the deepest texts of this about fatherhood is... the joke part is done. Is taken from Kiddushin 29a. And in this, there's a question about the mitzvot of the father on the child. Right? We just, even as recently as 2 weeks ago or last week, looked at this in Dr. Cohen's class. I got to learn this with Dr. Leibovitz. And I'll say that it's the same text from which there's a real big challenge about whether mitzvot are incumbent upon women, and in 4 minutes I don't have time to problematize all the problematic problems that we like to problematically address. So if you'll roll with me, I'd like to skip right to the part of this that I will say, when I hear father on the son, I hear parent on the child. And in a way, it's not that different from some of the responsibilities of a rabbi to the people who we teach. The Gemara says this. It quotes the Mishnah that a father is obligated with regard in 5 different circumstances to a son: circumcise and redeem him. We'll skip those. We'll see what happens. I have a daughter. I am. But the 3.5, 4 that I'd like to bring our attention to is the obligation of teaching Torah, of marrying off the child, teaching them a trade, and some say to swim. And these can be literal, or these can be a little bit more metaphoric of what it means to impart Torah, to impart values, to teach a trade, to make sure that a kid is taken care of, to marry them off, that is to make sure there's some furtherance of the Jewish people. I see these as all interconnected into ensuring that we have what to continue. Thank you. That these are literal. Yes, we must learn Torah, we must learn Parnassa, we must find a way to continue on, but they're really more about continuing this wonderful tradition, this wisdom that we stand in this chain of, that continues from one to the next, to the next, to the next, going way, way back to Moshe Rabbeinu and beyond. That for us, this is where we hold on to this, that to swim in waters, to be able to survive in a time that feels rocky, that feels like the torrents are pouring over us. This is for me the deepest Torah I think of fatherhood. This is some of the deepest Torah that I think the patriarchs of Avot have to offer us. And I don't just mean that gendered wise. I've learned how to say that. It's not gendered in this case for me. And so I'd like to end on some other true dad Torah. Why did Samson try to avoid arguing with Delilah?
Why?
He didn't want to split hairs. Which biblical character had no parents? Joshua, son of Nun. And does anybody need an ark? Because I know a guy.
With the foremothers, never really felt drawn in by their stories. Their diminished social status, their frequent bickering, and their sense of self-worth wholly reliant on having children made me more sympathetic to them than inspired by them. So I chose to present the foremothers to see what deeper meaning I might uncover. I was inspired by a book I read during my time here entitled In the Wake of the Goddesses by Tickfor Frymer-Pinsky. She argues that due to the lack of a female deity in the Torah, the foremothers absorbed the archetypal traits of the goddesses of Sumeria, embodying the feminine divine in their stories. I am presenting Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah in the archetypal roles of mother, daughter, and sister. The first is Sarah as mother. A mother is one who creates life, one who gathers people, one who teaches us how to live our lives. Sarah is childless for most of her life, and she has a child in her old age, but that is not why she bears this title. Sarah is mother because she, along with Abraham, welcomed countless new souls into the tribe through conversion. Today, she is considered the mother of every convert, and many claim her as mother in their Hebrew names. This originates from this pasuk from Bereshit. And Abram took Sarah, Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his other son, and all the possessions they had acquired, and the souls they had acquired in Haran, and they went to the land of Canaan. According to Bereshit Rabbah, Rashi, and a number of commentators, this line and the souls they had acquired in Haran refers to converts. Sarah brought the female converts beneath the sheltering wings of the Shekhinah and became their maker, their mother. Sarah is a mother beyond biological motherhood. She is a mother of souls, offering a shelter for those who need mothering. We all know women like this. They are acting in the name of our foremother, Sarah. Rebecca as daughter. Rebecca, a daughter, explores and expresses herself, inherits traditions and passes them on, stretches herself to step into a role of leadership and caring. Rebecca is an adventurous daughter of Laban, eager to journey to a new land. She is a clumsy daughter who can't stay on her camel when she sees her groom to be. And she becomes the daughter of Sarah when Isaac brings her into Sarah's tent. Bereshit Rabbah tells us, all the days that Sarah was alive, a cloud was connected to the entrance of the tent. When she died, the cloud stopped, and when Rebecca came, the cloud returned. Bereshit Rabbah continues to say that Rebecca also opens the doors of the tent wide again, returns the blessing of the dough of the challah, and brings back the burning candles, maybe Shabbos candles, maybe the Ner Tamid, that are burning from week to week in the tent. She models for us the journey of a daughter growing up, becoming the woman she's meant to be in the line of women. Leah and Rachel as sisters. Real sisters, ones who bicker, who are jealous, who love each other and sacrifice their own happiness for one another. They're a rare example of two sisters in relationship in the Masorah. The setup of them married to Jacob always irritated me. But I realized that this is the way the Torah knows of how to keep the relationship of two sisters intact. Otherwise, they'd be married to two men and would probably never see each other again. From the beginning, Rachel and Leah are compared, a classic trial of sibling life. And Laban had two daughters, the name of the elder Leah, the name of the younger Rachel, and the eyes of Leah were soft, and Rachel was beautiful. Leah and Rachel are unable to escape this comparison, growing up to continue to see themselves in comparison as the one who is loved and the one who is their children. But their fraught relationship also contains a strong bond of sisterhood. As children, they bond with their powerlessness under Laban, then unite against him to leave his household, even taking his idols and pretending they are their own, as only children can do. As adults, they work together. In one midrash, Rachel conspiring to help Leah wed Jacob first. And in Tanakh, Leah and Rachel striking the infamous mandrake deal to aid both of their efforts to conceive children. They model for us the essence of living in sisterhood with other women, supporting one another's dreams and lives, even if we don't agree or get along. Of course, there are many women in the tradition that embody these symbolic modes. Eve is mother, Ruth is daughter, Miriam is also sister. And of course, all these women are also mothers. By giving our foremothers these titles has helped me appreciate their grander role in our origin story and a new perspective on their relationship to us. So, if you know any mothers, daughters, or sisters, I invite you to use this framing to offer guidance and Torah in the name of our Ra'ah females.
Hamisha, ani yodea. Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing? We're like 5 through. There's a lot of us. You? That fun? Thanks. So I started rabbinical school here 4 years ago, and at that point I didn't really know what kind of rabbi I wanted to be, what direction I wanted to take my rabbinate in, and getting to be in class here and learn here. The text that I was studying really inspired me to go on the journey that I've been embarking on over the last 4 years. And I wanted to share one particular midrash that I found in my first year of rabbinical school. In my midrash class with Rabbi Leibovitz, I was looking for a text that had to do with Oz. And I found this midrash that had to do with Ozi v'Zimrat. And this text totally changed my life because it inspired a song that inspired a whole new direction in the kind of music and prayer that I was writing. And I have this rabbinical school and this place and this group of people to thank for that inspiration. And the story is about a queen. It's from Shir HaShirim Rabbah, which is all these different parables of royalty and the royalty's relationship with the people in the kingdom. And this queen has in her possession all these precious jewels and stones, emeralds and rubies and diamonds. And the queen's child says to her, "Mother, let me have those." And she says, "They're yours. They've always been yours, and to you I give them." And they liken this to the people of Israel as they're standing at the shore of the Red Sea. They're frightened. They don't know what to do. And they shout out to God. They say, "Ozi v'Zimrat Yad, God, be our strength, be our song." And God says to them, "It's yours. It's always been yours, and to you I give it." And the rabbis say here, "Ve'ein oz ela Torah." There is no strength except for Torah. And I thought about that. I thought about what it means for the Torah to be our strength. And this comes right after the line, "Va'ani asher uzecha" from the Psalm 59. And when I was thinking about what I was going to share today, I thought about the words chamishah chamushei Torah. And the word chamesh and chamishim appear in the Torah very often, but the word chamushim only appears 4 times in the whole Tanakh. And one is in the very beginning of this story. It says, "Vayisov Elohim et ha'am derech hamidbar yam suf, v'chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim." God led the people roundabout by way of the wilderness and the sea of reeds, and the Israelites went up armed out of Egypt. Chamushim, armed. And I thought about what it was that they were armed with, and what it means to be equipped with Oz, to be equipped with Torah. And over the last 4 years in rabbinical school, and over the course of our whole journeys here, I feel that that's what I feel I've become. I feel I've been equipped with a beautiful Torah that I can share, and that has led me to this amazing journey of music and prayer, and has led me in a direction that I feel is really powerful for me. And I hope to be able to equip many others with that same direction. And I know that all of us feel equipped to be able to share the Torah that we've created, that we've been inspired by, and it's all based on this amazing Torah that we learned here at Ziegler. So I thought maybe we could sing a little together.
Yeah.
Ziegler, I've developed a pretty wonderful relationship with Mishnah. Started, I forget whether it was our first or second year, but there were a group of students who wanted to start doing studying Mishnah every day, 1 or 2 Mishnayot a day, and I've been wanting to do that for a really long time, and I figured, okay, you might as well start. And so since then, I have months where I'll study 2 Mishnayot a day. I'll have months where I kind of forget that my Mishnah is there. But I found that I've come back. Right now I'm in Shkalim, and which is pretty wonderful. It's in the middle of Moed. And what I've loved about Mishnah is kind of twofold. There's the personal and there's the communal. So the personal part of it is that I like to use Mishnah as meditation. You know, it's so straightforward. You know, it tells you the rules the way they are. But at the same time, these straightforward laws and rules can be so intensely connected to how I live my life every day. It's a succinct way, each Mishnah is a succinct way for me to look at where I am right now and how I want to be living. And kind of the second aspect of that is the communal of seeing myself as a rabbi going forward. I know that I can use these texts to show how much these ritual, law-focused tidbits can really go forward into being applicable to us today, wherever we are, whoever we are in life. And so I want to share one of my favorite Mishnayot that I've discovered with you, because I think it's a really great example of that old, outdated ritual stuff being eternally significant. This is from Mishnah Trumot, and the context is that through Mishnah Trumot and some other tractates around it, we can learn that there are a bunch of different sacrifices you can give. There are a bunch of different tithes that you can set out, and they don't really count unless you say, okay, I'm setting this aside as truma, I'm setting this aside as maaser, etc., etc. And so let's learn this Mishnah together. Ha mikaven lomar truma ve'amar maaser, maaser ve'amar truma. The one who intends to say truma, I'm setting this aside for truma, and accidentally says maaser, or I want to set this aside to be maaser, and accidentally says truma instead. Okay? Olah ve'amar shlamim, shlamim ve'amar olah. I want to make this a burnt offering, but accidentally says this is going to be a peace offering, or I want this to be a peace offering, accidentally says a burnt offering. שאיני נכנס לבית זה ואמר לזה, שאיני נהנה לזה ואמר לזה. I vow that I'm not going to enter this building, but accidentally says that building, so I vow that I'm never going to enter the second floor of AJU, but accidentally say, okay, I vow I'm never going to enter the third floor, or that I'm not going to benefit from this, but accidentally says that, so I'm never again going to enjoy a brownie, but accidentally says I'm never again going to enjoy cheesecake. Lo amar klu, ad sheyifiv v'libo shavim. They haven't said anything until their mouth, their words, and their heart or mind are as one, are in the same place. And I love this Mishnah at first, particularly because I'm the kind of person who often messes up what I'm saying. I talk a lot and I jumble my words, I misplace things, I misplace thoughts. I'm davening in the morning and I accidentally go into Rosh Chodesh when it's a weekday. And so this was a little bit of a comfort to me. And that, now when I stumble across the wrong word, I think back to this Mishnah and say, okay, take a breath. That didn't mean anything. Let's start over. So personally, that's meaningful to me. And at the same time, it's really a reminder to me, and I think it can be to a lot of people, of this tradition that we take on is not just rote, or can't just be rote, for it to actually mean something. When I'm teaching a text, it really needs to be a text that I believe in, that I think is truly meaningful. When I'm davening, it doesn't mean much if I'm just getting up in the morning and saying the words and sitting down and being done with it. I have to really know what it is that I'm saying. And so I carry this with me, this Mishnah and a lot of other Mishnayot I've learned. I carry these with me, both as I'm living my personal life and as I'm going forward as a rabbi. So I hope we can take this as an example of a way that we can really get intimate with our text. Figure out what's a text, what's a body of work that I can carry with me forward as I become a rabbi and as I become a more enlightened individual every day.
Shiva Yamei Shavta. Can you do the next one? Do it myself. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. There is a question of why, when God is creating the world, why did he create it with a bet? Bet represents duality. It's this idea that if I am me and you are there is something separate. That which is not me is other. What is not good is therefore evil. And the trick and the practice is, how do we move from a state of duality, of binary, into the consciousness of oneness? And in fact, there's a midrash that the letter Aleph, for 26 generations, complains to God, God, I'm the first letter, yet you created your world without me. And I always feel really bad for the Aleph. He must be like in a really bad state of affairs, and also like he must be male, because there's no way somebody can complain to God for 26 generations and still remain the first letter. Right? That's male. And so God says to him, Aleph, you poor thing, don't worry. The world in all its fullness were created for the Torah alone. Tomorrow, when I come to give my Torah at Sinai, the first word I say will begin with you, Anochi. And therefore, Torah is the antidote to get out of our binary state into this oneness of Aleph. And I think the next verse actually gives a hint of that. V'haaretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'choshech al pnei ha'tahom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. There are some philosophers in this room who will point out that when God created the world, it wasn't creation from nothing. There was already things present. Tohu v'vohu, darkness, the deep, v'ruach Elohim, and mayim. These were all present already when God is creating the world. And in mindfulness, the mindfulness practice, it's not that these things are bad or good. They're both necessary. They're both important in order to create something greater. And I'll read a little quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, a very famous Buddhist monk, who says, both our negative feelings and positive feelings are organic and belong to the same reality. So there's no need to fight. We only need to embrace and take care. The practice is to transform yourself. If you don't have garbage, you have nothing to compost. You have nothing to nourish the flower in you. I'll see how that again. If you don't have garbage, you have nothing to compost. You have nothing to nourish the flower in you. You need the suffering, you need the afflictions, because they are organic, and you know that you can transform them and make good from them. And in life, just like there is at Ziegler, there might be some darkness. There's tohu vavohu, there's chaos. And it's really easy to fall into that pit. But there is also Ruach Elohim. There are also the seeds of God's Spirit with us. And we need to water those. We need to water those seeds, collect the organic material of that darkness, and create something greater. And what I've learned here at Ziegler is how to transform that anger, that resentment, those expectations, and turn them into gratitude. To remind myself, I get to do this. I get to learn. I get to be here. And I think our class has actually done a really incredible job of moving from a place of complaining into a place of, we got this. We're here. Because what follows is light. Vayomer Elohim vayhi or, v'haya vayhi or. And I wonder if Aleph, after all those times, if he wasn't complaining for 26 generations, he would have noticed that or begins with Aleph. We have the opportunity to choose the world we want to create. Let's choose light.
Is that a spoiler? That's Matan. That was the right response. So a couple hours after Matan was born, the NICU doctor came into our room with a serious expression on her face. She told us that Matan's red blood cells were self-destructing and he needed blood immediately. However, transfusion was risky because at that point they did not yet know his blood type. Why can't you test it, we asked her. Because he doesn't have a drop to spare, she responded. Thank God he did not reject transfusion, and on the second day of his life, 50% of his blood was exchanged. Over the course of his 26-day stay in the NICU, and I'll note that number for my Gematria-loving colleagues, all of his blood was replaced through numerous transfusions, and the hemolytic disease that threatened his life was abated. I imagine someday learning the book of Ezekiel with Matan. We'll study the allegory where God finds the Israelites like a baby struggling to live, wallowing in a pool of blood. And we'll read that phrase found in the Kriyat Shem of the Brit Milah ceremony, B'damai Chai. In spite of your blood, you shall live. And I'll remind Matan of the miracles of his time in the NICU, the gift of blood that he received from donors that he had never met before, the gifts and miracles of those skilled hands and open hearts that gave him life. We were acutely aware that at Matan's bris, he did in fact have a drop of blood to spare. And through that blood, he entered into the most profound and beautiful covenant. You know, when I looked up the phrase "B'damai Chai" in the Tanakh, you've all seen this before when you look at the English, that little footnote that says, meaning of Hebrew uncertain. And it has to do with the preposition. It has to do with the B'damai Chai. So is it saying, right, with this baby who's drowning in his own blood, that in spite of the blood that you're drowning in, you will live? Or does it mean, in your blood, you shall live? And I think that it gets lifted from Yechezkel and inserted into the Kriyat Shem of Brit Milah because of the second read. And that there's a profound understanding that the blood of Brit Milah signifies a new life, or a new kind of life that baby boys, in this case, are offered. Now, if I zoom out for a second, here's what I think is the lesson that we can all hold on to. On Pesach, I think the line that often resonates the most for me is the B'chol Dor Vador line, and I think it resonates for a lot of people, this invitation to see oneself as if we actually were the ones who left Egypt. But that invitation, I think, is not just about Pesach, and it's not just about Egypt. The invitation is to see our lives, and therefore to map our lives onto the story and the narrative web of our tradition. Meaning, the more we can hear God's speech to Moshe, God's speech to Yechezkel, Abraham speaking to Sarah, and back and forth. The more we can hear that as not conversations between other characters, but as a conversation between the character and ourselves, I think the richer the web of meaning our lives take on. The more we can kind of map our experiences onto the narrative of the Torah, we can feel ourselves not just in connection with tradition, but in this odd and comforting way as an echo of tradition. And in order to get there, it doesn't just happen. It requires immersing ourselves, as my colleagues have said, it requires immersing ourselves in the narrative of our tradition. And really becoming so familiar with these conversations of our ancestors that we hear them when our friend says something to us, or when the doctor says something to us. So I bless us all that we take the gift of the covenant that has been given to us, and we invest ourselves doubly and triply and quadruply into it again and again, so that our lives may be not just an echo, but a harmony of the tradition that we've received.
This is an artist I know, Hadassah Goldfish. She has a piece where she spent the pregnancy inside a giant fiberglass whale. She told me that she kept dreaming of Yonah, and she couldn't understand why, and she realized that it was because inside the whale, Yonah is safe. So she built this whale to keep herself and her family safe while her baby grew inside of her. For those who don't, I was pregnant and alone in Israel when on my third year for 6 months. The experience of pregnancy and motherhood and rabbinical school all combined was terrible and wonderful and the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But had the incredible blessing of really, and this is very personal to my experience and not speaking to pregnancy as a whole, but really was that profound shift for me into owning who I was and owning how I wanted to move as a rabbi in this world. And it led me into the space I now occupy, which is both a sort of strange space of trying to fill in gaps in the tradition for people who need it, but primarily to be able to work with artists and writers and people who are creative fields and teach them and also learn from them. And one of the things I've learned from them is to really be willing to put yourself in a place of vulnerability and a place of deep discomfort. So with that in mind, I have written the first poem spoken word thing I have done since being at school. So bear with me. I will now.
You got this.
The Jewish pregnancy book reminds me that when Sarah learned she is pregnant, she laughs. And I'm laughing now because this feels like the start of a bad Jewish joke. The one where the pregnant woman walks into a bar in Jerusalem and there are sirens around the corner because yet another person just got stabbed. You know, here is one more hill to climb. And this feels scarier than when I lived here during the last Intifada. Because there is something growing inside of me now, and I'm supposed to take care of it. And surely someone can tell me what I'm doing here and what is happening to my body, but I'm not supposed to tell anyone because it's early days, and the Jews are a really superstitious people. Turn around and spit 3 times. But I'm alone here, and Rachel really needs an explanation for why I just passed out in the market, because the thought of eating makes me nauseous, and I've never felt so tired before in all my life, and I just threw up in front of the Prime Minister's house, and the security guards are careers, and surely, there must be some text or prayer or rabbi that can help me. After all, I'm in Jerusalem. I'm in Jerusalem now, not next year. And my app is telling me that the baby inside of me is currently the size of a croissant because that is the setting I have it at. Pastries, not vegetables. No oranges or eggplants for me. And pastries are actually all I seem to be able to keep down now, which is odd because normally I don't eat sweet things, but at least I can still swallow an egg, which is fitting because the Talmud tells me that if I eat eggs, I will have children with large eyes. And Disney says that's a good thing, right? Did you know that about eggs? Aren't eggs amazing? And how do chickens make babies? Do they have sex? So I'll eat my eggs, but I cannot summon the fish that will give me charming children, the coriander that will give me plump children, or the celery that will give me radiant children, even though we will later try to trick fate by naming you Lev Ziva. And who on earth is going to eat the etrog that will lead to fragrant children? And when they smell of citrus, or jasmine, or roses, or the suffocating cloying scent of the sandstorm that trapped me inside for days and turned the city sickly yellow, the colour of my jaundiced feet at birth. And what do you mean I should eat meat and drink beer to get healthy children? That can't be right. My mother drank Guinness when pregnant with me, but I don't think they let you do that now. But at least I have avoided the clay that will give me ugly children, nor have I accidentally trod on the excrement of a donkey, because everyone knows that leads to children losing their hair. And you will definitely be safe from gluttony, because I couldn't eat mustard even if I wanted to. And I know we did not copulate on the ground to conceive you, so your neck should turn out normal size. And did you know that breast milk is para? And apparently you are learning Torah in my womb, so being in the Beit Midrash all day should be helping. But I'm feeling too sick to be a good Havruta. So am I Esav to your Jacob, and does that make me a bad mother? And I know I need something more. Something from the tradition that will remind me I can do this. This thing my mother did, my grandmother did, that their mothers and their grandmothers did. You are growing inside of me, body and soul, and one day you will want to come out, and I don't know if I can keep you safe. Give me the story of the mothers, the midwives, the unnamed women who endured and survived and thrived. Because the sirens are going, and I can feel the quickening, and Trump is running for president, and your father is far away, and like Yonah, I want to climb inside the whale and stay there with you for days and months and years forever. But the gates are opening, and you need to come out. Little one, the gates are opening, and I cannot hold them back. Pitchuli Shari said it. Risha Atova.
To nobody's surprise. Although I don't know how I'm supposed to go after that, Bruce.
I have to go after Mara, so you're fine.
I've always had a very close connection with the idea of being commanded. It's never come difficultly to me, the idea of religious obligation. What has been difficult for me is that first commandment, or maybe first saying, Ani Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God. By starting with Ani Hashem Elokecha, it's clear to me that the rest of the list are meant to be about that. that the idea of being commanded is ultimately about God. But here's the problem. I did my undergraduate degree in theology, which means that any time that I try to say anything about God, I have the voices of generations of theologians in my head telling me the many ways in which I am probably wrong. This has been difficult for me growing religiously. Growing in religious practice has never been a problem. Growing in religious belief and religious ideas has long been a problem for me. And then I came here to a place where people speak freely about God without worrying that someone else is going to tell them they're wrong. And maybe they will, and maybe they are wrong, and that's okay. And that is something that I really learned to do at Ziegler, which leads me to a text that I want to look at, which is a text that naturally I came to by way of Gemara, even though it's in the Torah, because that's how we do it, apparently. I learned this text for the first time in the story of the oven of Achnai. Lo bashamayim ki. We all know the story. It is the proof that we get to make decisions about the law. God has written his book, and now we are moving on with it. When I came across this text in context, however, it really helped me to connect to the idea that these commandments that I have such a good time following are ultimately divine. Lo bashamayim hi. The Torah is not in heaven. That you should say, who shall go up to heaven for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it that we may do it. Neither is it beyond the sea. That you should say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it to us and cause us to hear it that we may do it. The word is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart that you may do it. The context, which doesn't matter terribly much to the rabbis, no need to worry, is that the Torah doesn't belong in heaven. It may have come from heaven, but that's not where it remained. God didn't keep the Torah in heaven with him forever. God gave the Torah to Moshe to bring down the mountain to the earth. And actually, the ability to fulfill commandments, the ability to be a part of the process of understanding what the law is itself divine. And so it doesn't matter that everything that I say is in some way incorrect according to the generations of theologians that live in my head. Because ultimately, I have learned the fact that I live a life and the fact that we can live lives that are devoted to God matters more than the minutiae of the ideas and whether or not we have everything perfectly correct in our heads. Thank you.
So I want to do something that we might not get very much of in our daily lives. I want to show how each and every single one of you and me are actually awesome. So awesome, in fact, that we are on par with the stars in the sky. To do that, as we've learned at Ziegler, I want to share a text. It is from Midrash Tanchuma on Acharei Mot. When Joshua waged war in Givon, he said, "O sun, be quiet, dom, at Givon." When Joshua wanted to silence the sun, he did not say to it, "O sun, stand still, amod at Givon, but be quiet." Now, why did he say, "be quiet"? Because every hour that the sun is traveling, it is praising the Holy One. And as long as it praises the Holy One, it has the power to travel its course. Joshua therefore told it to be silent. But the sun said to Joshua, "May someone younger be saying 'be quiet' to someone older? I was created on the 4th day, while human beings were created on the 6th. And are you saying 'be quiet' to me?" And Joshua said back, "When a young free person has an elderly slave, does he not say to him, 'be silent'? In the case of our father Abraham, the Holy One delivered heaven and earth to him, saying, "Blessed be Abram of God Most High, acquirer of heaven and earth." And not only that, but you bowed down to Joseph, as stated, "Here were the sun, the moon, and the stars bowing down to me. So would you speak against me?" And so the son asked Joshua, "Are you decreeing over me that I am to be quiet?" And he said to it, "Yes." And it said to him, "Then who will speak the praise of the Holy One?" And he said back, "You be quiet, and I will speak the praise of the Holy One." None of us are passive elements of creation, nor are we the sole agents in creation who are meant to praise God. We live in a web of relationships connecting us to each other, to God, and to everything else around us. Our actions reverberate through these connections, and we're accountable for the consequences of them. We are, in fact, as powerful as stars and as responsible to the universe as they are. We are star stuff, and star stuff is us.
And today we're going to talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, our ancestors, the families that began all of us here today. And I think what is missing, what we don't get enough of unless we take the time to explore it on our own, is some of the symbolism and some of the beauty that is found all over the world in Jewish circles when it comes to the 12 Shiftaya. So just for a moment, I want to take us through a bit from Bamidbar Rabbah, some midrash, a corpus of text I don't usually defer to talk about some of the symbols and the flags that were held by every single one of these tribes individually. So we start with Reuven, and what Bamidbar Rabbah teaches us is exactly how these flags were created and the symbolism behind it. Some of them were are a little bit more explained than others in true rabbinic fashion. But every tribe has a stone that is placed as the symbol of that tribe on the choshen, on the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. And for Reuven, the stone was ruby. And so naturally, the map color, the base, the background is red to match. And it happens to have some mandrakes. Rashi disagrees and says it's jasmine. It's a pretty flower that's on their flag. Shimon gets topaz, which I normally think of as yellow, but in this case it's a green topaz with Shem on it. Now, for those of us, we're going quickly because I've only got a couple minutes here, so you can dive a little deeper into why Shem here. But then we get all of these very different symbols, some of these different stones that we wouldn't actually think of. And if you actually look at the traditional paintings that you'll see of the Choshen, you don't always see multicolored stones on there. In fact, even the one in the picture here doesn't. But Levi had an agate, or a form of emerald, which was a third white, a third black, and a third red, and actually had the items of the Choshen on the flag. That one's probably a little more obvious than the Shem. Yehuda's was Nofech. Nofech doesn't get a translation because we have absolutely no idea what the stone is. So I worked backwards here because the map was colored like the skies, and a lion was on Yehuda's. Yisachar gets sapphire, but not the sapphire that you'd see in my engagement ring. A deep, dark, deep blue sapphire with the sun and the moon on it. Here we actually get an explanation from Divrei Hayamim. That Yisachar or Yisachar, depending on whose tradition you like to follow in that. I'll let the scholars in the room fight that one out. You get astrology, so he's got the sun and the moon on a very deep, dark navy blue flag. We get Zvulun has diamond, a white flag with a boat on it. Dan gets amber, this beautiful, multifaceted, it's colored like the sapphire with a snake. We're just going to really burn through these here, guys. There's a lot of them. There's 12 if anybody's counting. God gets obsidian, a really deep, typically a deeper, darker stone, but here they describe it of a mixture of black and white. So it's a gray with a camp. You can't really see it in this photo. That's a military camp that's on that flag there. It's a little dark. Naphtali gets amethyst, clear wine that's not strong. That's the color. I want us to imagine what that's like. I have a feeling in all of our seders, that's a different color. He gets a deer. Asher gets aquamarine. His map, this is a fun one. His color is the color of his map is like a precious stone used by women to adorn themselves. That color, maybe? And olive. Yosef actually gets two flags, because Yosef gets the flag of Ephraim and the flag of Manasseh, which is how we get to 12. So they both get onyx as the backdrop, and then they individually get a symbol that is on their individual flag. Ephraim gets the ox, Manasseh gets the oryx. The re'aim is the English translation. Fun fact, in Christian Bibles, re'aim is translated as unicorn, so he gets a unicorn on his. And last but not least, Binyamin, who gets, I think that's last but not least, gets jasper, and he gets all of the colors. All of them in one flag. Try putting that in a single stone. But there's one that's similar, and he gets both. And the reason why I want to take the time to give us all of this background is because we're going to see these symbols everywhere we go. And these symbols are our symbols. This is our background. These are our people. These are our traditions. And yet, I don't know about you guys, but when I walk around the city of Los Angeles, 90% of the time, I have no idea what the weird artwork is on the stained glass windows of all of the various massive synagogues are. And now we have a little bit more insight. And what I think is fascinating about the Shnei Masar Shiftaya and their flags is that they're all one people. And yet every one has to have their own symbol, their own color, their own message. Because despite the fact that we are all one people, what makes us special is that we are all individuals within that one people. So I want to encourage everyone in this room, as you go off and continue your rabbinic studies, or you go off into your rabbinates, to find your flag, find your symbol, and know that even though you stand apart as unique in your rabbinate, you are still part of the Shnei Masar Shiftaya.
So we've all arrived here at this moment from many journeys. I would say before coming to rabbinical school, we all came on different paths. And even throughout rabbinical school, which I'm not sure I knew when I started, we all have taken different journeys along the way. And somehow, we've all arrived at this moment. And somehow we, this class, are all going to become rabbis in a couple of days. And we call ourselves a cohort. And in our final year here, we do a lot of work on defining our values. So I think maybe we all sort of have a sense of what our values are, our Jewish values, what I might call our world values. But in this final year, we really do a lot of work on what are those things that we're going to carry with us into our rabbinate and into our lives moving forward. In homiletics, we write sermons about halakha, and I can tell you that every single one of our sermons was different. In senior seminar, we think about the things that we need in order to take that next step. Big houses, small houses, suburban, city, what we're going to take on for our next step. And in Rabbi Artsin's class, we were asked to write a credo, a value statement, that even as we change and even as we grow as rabbis, these values, hopefully, are at our core and will more or less remain the same. And that's how I view the 13 Yidot. That is God's credo. We're journeying, the Israelites are journeying, and they've sinned, and they've tested God's faith, and they've tested their own faith in God. And Moses says we need a way to God, we need something to hold on to. We need something so that when we have to come to you for mercy, God, we need something for you to say. And God comes back and says, Adonai, Adonai, el rachum v'chanun, erech apayim rav chesed ve'emet, notzer chesed la'alafim, notzer avon v'fesha v'chata v'nakeh. And twice God says chesed, rav chesed, a great amount of chesed, or abounding in chesed, and notzer chesed la'alafim, God preserves or assures chesed for thousands of generations to come. And last week in Rabbi Artsen's class, we learned about chesed, and a text from Genesis Rabbah that says, Hakol tzrichin lechesed. Everyone needs loving kindness. Even Abraham, for whose sake chesed encircled the entire world, even the people that give the most amount of chesed, those people too need chesed. And so I want to offer us that as we move forward, this class, but also all of us, that whatever life throws at us, remember what it is are your core values, remember chesed, and what it is that you define is really at your core for yourselves and also for your rabbinate moving Yehoshua ben Prachia, Omer, Aseh lecha rav, uknei lecha chaver. Make for yourself, find for yourself a rabbi, and acquire for yourself a friend, a colleague. And I think I have a vivid memory of this little line, Aseh lecha rav, uknei lecha chaver, a little art piece about Yevig on the wall in the art room at Camp Ramah. And I remember seeing it for years and kind of going, it's an interesting piece, beautiful. Is it one task? Is it two tasks? And I think I have learned on the journey of the aseh, really changing it from aseh lecha rav to aseh atzmecha rav, making of yourself a rabbi. It becomes one task. The uknei lecha chaver ends up just happening naturally. And I think it's pretty telling that the acquisition of a friend uses the word uknei. Same word we use for purchase. Because in order to acquire something so totally, you have to give up something of your own and give up something of yourself. And I think that this cohort as a whole, we have done so much to give one another of ourselves in our journeys to becoming Rav and the Rabbanan Zebei Ziegler. Thank you for helping us finish translating the song into a Palestinian Arabic. We've each put in a lot to make of ourselves into rabbis, and in return, we have built such strong friendships. And we have built such strong connections as colleagues, connections that will continue, I hope, to endure forever. And I want to take a moment where we each can acknowledge things that we have learned from one another along the way. So to close, I will be sharing, and we will continue. For example, I have learned from Rabbi Sidney Adler-Rubinstein that the Beit Midrash is not meant to be a quiet place. And that every text should be approached first with furious happiness, and then really translated into our lives now.
Karen, Rabbi Karen, reminded of another text from Pirkei Avot. Shammai Omer, Aseh Toratcha Keva, Emor Me'ad Ve'aseh Hardeh, V'haveh Yekabel Et Kol Ha'adam Be'sever Panim Yosef. So Shammai says to make your Torah fix, say a little but do a lot, and receive every person with pleasant countenance. So, with so many years of being here, even after so many years of being here, and so many years of going through your life's journey knowing that this is what you want to do, you have shown that you make your Torah really fix. And I want to grab that and run with it for my life. Keep that passion for so many years to come. And I think also that you say, when you speak in class, you're not like some of us who, says what comes to their mind, but you speak in class when you know that something is something that needs to be said. I want to take some of that, and the last thing is that you accept everybody with a pleasant countenance, even if what's going on in your life is not the most happy-go-lucky situation. You come to class and with a smile and a hug, and I want to absorb some of that. So thank you.
Rabbi Morris, there's so much to learn from you and I have in my time with you. I admire and I've learned from you the importance of striking a balance between a deep love of knowledge and learning and being a total mensch. What a great combination. A mensch acting with kindness, caring, warmth, compassion, and patience.
Brody, from you, I've learned the Torah of being a great son. I want to take this moment to celebrate your commitment as a son, the time and dedication. I don't mean the celestial side of it. Time, dedication, and the ways that you've centered your life and your commitments here also around being a good son. And I want to bless you that in being someone who's so caring for the people around you, that you also find the time and the ability to take care of yourself and to thrive in all of the places that you go, whether you're far away from them or not, that you are successful and find the time and the opportunities to take care of your own needs as well.
Rabbi Ariel Wolpe. I have not had the time with you or anyone here that I would like to, but I have learned from you a level of commitment and love and perseverance that I think is inspirational to everyone around you. But most of all, I have seen in you an ability and a drive to find the angle that no one else sees in Torah and in community. And I hope that you are able to continue bringing that insight and that perspective that might otherwise be lost to us to wherever you go, in every community and every person that you touch.
Rabbi Sammy.
You're supposed to hug it after
I've learned so much from you since we first
your ability to let things go that everyone around you thinks is the most important thing in the world, but you see the bigger picture and you are able to flow and focus on what really matters. How amazing of a husband and father you are and dedicated to your family. And the way that you walk the derech of chesed in your everyday life and are constantly infusing love and compassion into everything you do and say.
Rav Yossi.
It's confusing that we're in the same show.
Where'd you get your shirt?
So, for those who don't know, Joseph loves and loves hard. And I don't think I've walked by you without it turning into a stop and chat that is real and deep, in which you ask after everyone. Right? Like I've seen you, just whoever it is you're passing, you ask how their family is, you ask how they are, and a lot of us say, how are you as a salutation, but when I hear you say it, I know you mean it. I know you actually mean it as a question. And I think that that comes from the Torah that I've learned from you of a real mindfulness. Not just putting lip service to it, but a real mindfulness. Whether it's learning a text or changing a diaper or greeting a friend, you embody such a presence in all that you do, and it is one of the holiest things to get to be around over the past 5 years, and I will miss not getting to see it on a regular basis, but hopefully we'll get to somehow call you up and interrupt a meditation to hear what your mindfulness is and to get to soak that in, and I hope to take that with me from the Torah I've learned from you.
Rabbi Natasha.
We chose these randomly.
Why this is so perfect is that, Natasha, you have challenged me more than anybody in Ziegler, because you and I are so very different in everything that we do. And that has made my love for learning with you as my bar pluta, my favruta. I really appreciate everything the way you've challenged me and how I see the world in a much more logical sense. And the text that I think of with you is Ohavei Adonai Sini Ra. Lovers of God despise evil. Because your journey has taken you, as you said, through many journeys to find God. And you're always seeking. And through that, what is very clear is that you love everybody that you encounter as well. And that there's not an ounce of evil in you. And despite the fact that everybody loves giving you such a hard time, including my 2-year-old son who makes fun of your ass. It's true. But I'm so blessed to learn from you and continue to learn from you, and I'm going to miss you terribly when you're across the pond.
Rabbi Josh Wachowski. Hi. So I could talk about the amazing music that you bring, some of which we got to hear today. I'm actually not going to, because when I thought about the deep Torah that I've learned from you, 2 particular stories or moments came to mind. The first is that I have a tendency to forget that I'm afraid of heights until I'm in the situation where I'm up high, and this happened at the beginning of Israel year. We found ourselves on top of what passes for a mountain in Israel, and my brain suddenly went, "You're afraid of heights," and we didn't know each other that well at that point. We've been in classes together, we haven't spent that much time together, and you led me all the way down that mountain by the hand. And that was the first thing that came to mind when I thought of you. The incredible kindness, the fact that you could see immediately that something was wrong, and that you knew that you could do something to help, and you did, and I don't know how I would have gotten down there in one piece without you. That kindness is so incredible and so present in everything that you do. And the second is that there are conversations that we've had where I've been speaking and I've looked up at you and realized that you are 1,000% more present in the moment than I am, even though I'm the one that's speaking. There's something about that that really shines through your face when you're having a conversation with someone, that you are so incredibly there and ready to listen and take in what they have to say. And if I can have an iota of that I take with me, I know that it would make me not just a better rabbi, but a better class. Thank you so much.
Rabbi Amanda Russell.
It's a thanks.
When we first moved to Los Angeles, didn't want to be my friend. And I'm really glad that you came around. Because from you I've learned to not take myself too seriously. I've learned commitment. I've learned how to sing Mina Meitzar and really cool Sephardi melodies. I've learned how to not host too many people for Shabbat meals. But more importantly, I've learned how to take care of the people around me. I've learned that you're the best class president that Ziegler's ever had. I've learned what it means to even before people ask you, you already know the problems that people have, the things that people are worried about, and you already text them or call them and make sure that they have everything that they need, because you anticipate their needs before they anticipate their needs. That's happened with me many a time. I know it's happened with probably everybody sitting over here on the side of the room. If I could take one thing from you, it's to learn to anticipate the needs of those I care about and make sure to take care of them and take care of myself as well and be the best kind of person and rabbi that I could be. Thank you.
Rabbi Feivel. So for those of you who don't know, Rabbi Feivel and I, back then, I won't say it, but you know what it used to be called. We entered at the same time, and he made a few life choices, which caused us to also end at the same time, and which we all approve of. Awesome. Our first year together, Feivel and I both were LA Fitness members. And Feivel was what he called himself, my personal trainer. So 2 or 3 days a week, Feivel and I would go to LA Fitness, and I thought this was like a workout buddy, like he'd do his thing and I would do my thing. And the next thing I knew, I don't even know what that machine is, the one where you like push yourself. Anyway, he was standing at the bottom of it going, another one. I was like, I'm tired. And he was like, no, another one. Anyway, Feivel, you are a 100% kind of a guy. Nothing that you say or do or believe in is done at less than your full capacity. And if I could learn one thing from you, it is that your passions will show through in everything that you do, whether you want them to or not. And yeah, I wish you all the best and stay at 100%.
Rabbi Rose Previsa.
Almost right.
Almost 6 years, so close. Rabbi, you and I started our journey in our very own private ulpan. It was just the two of us and Mira. And it was wonderful. And what was amazing was that Rose and I spent every single exam or quiz or anything getting exactly the same score with completely different things in the paper, or in the exam, which was great because then we really got our own private ulpan where we could really help each other with the things that we clearly were better than the other one at. And I think that's been very sort of telling of our journey together in general. Rose, you and I are both very loud people and very opinionated people, and you, despite your spoken word over here, were a great chavruta in Israel, so thank you for that. And I'm used to being somebody who makes things happen. I'm the tech guy, and what I've learned from you more than anything else is that you're the one that makes things beautiful, and that the world will turn whether we're here or not, whatever we're doing, but the world won't be beautiful without people like you to step up and make it so. So thank you, Rose, for showing me that substance is not enough, that style also has to be there, and for making the world and for making our journey together as beautiful as it has been.
Rabbi Jonathan Hudson. I had things on a card and then you blew it for me. So. But that's still true for me. So I've had many things to me. The first, which I kind of knew beforehand, but has been fully cemented by you, is that that man is legitimately the greatest superhero of all time. And 3 hours long in that is too long. And the second thing is, and this is the really important one for me, is that, and you've heard me say this before, but it is really where I have learned from you and what I will take out into the world, is that even though you sit in a place of not necessarily having your idea about God, you have given me a comfort about speaking about faith, about speaking about God, about holding owning that relationship publicly, that has really changed how I relate to Torah, how I relate to text, how I can sit in the world as someone who is absorbed in this conversation and engage in this conversation about who God is, what God is, how we exist in relation to God, if there is a God, and to own that as something more than an intellectual exercise, and as really at the essence of what we are doing, and it informs everything that I now do in the world, and every piece of Torah I have that I have to share is framing back onto giving me the confidence to own that, to make that for me. So, thank you.
Rabbi Ginny, formerly Romano, now Greenspan. I call her Greenspano. Story time, 5 years ago. I was Ginny's first Kavruta in Janet's class. Janet might have thought that two anxious people working together might cancel each other out. It did not. And so I can remember the text that we studied, and I remember we were both freaking out. And what was interesting about that experience is that if you fast forward years later, this past summer at Camp Ramah in Ojai, Ginny and I were both mashgichim in the kitchen. And while people in the kitchen were slinging pizza dough, Ginny was walking around slinging Torah. And it was really, really cool. And I was thinking at the time, somebody who used to be anxious about Torah now was suddenly a badass. Truly. And so if there's anything I've learned from you, it's that people can shed the skin of anxiety like a snake and become, not to say that you're a snake, but can become, well maybe you are because you're badass like a snake, can become incredibly powerful and incredibly trustworthy and just amazing. And so thank you for teaching me that, and sorry about that first day when we were at Kavruta 5 years ago.
Arba asar miyodea. Arba asar miyodea. Thank you all for joining us and for allowing us to play with our Torah and to grow in this room, to our teachers who've brought us here to a point where we could grow and teach and share. And thank you again to all of my colleagues who are now forever both my rabbis and my friends. Thank you. Thank you. We'll do a rousing
glad for moments that feel so high. Just one picture can erase the fire. I can feel it growing day by day. When the gates open, we are returning to what's up ahead. On our returning to that place I know so well. Feed the fire so the flame grows strong.